Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Gita, and you are watching the official channel of the United Federation of Phoenix. We are among the oldest science fiction clubs in the country, and we've been around for a very long time. We've been meeting forever, but these are among our very first videos. So I feel really honored to have the opportunity to be able to helm these. So over the next coming weeks, I will be interviewing various club members just so you get to know us a bit better. And then after that, I hope we'll be having some very animated discussions about sci-fi movies and shows. And then also events in the scientific community and science fiction community. And then we'll just kind of take it from there. So today I have a really great guest lined up for you. He is a UFP club member, but he's also professor of science and planetary studies at Arizona State University. Also, he's got an asteroid named after him, and I honestly cannot say that. And I don't think a lot of you can say that either. So I think it's pretty cool. So let's go over to Dr. Dave and find out what makes him tick. Hello, Dr. Dave. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do at ASU.
Yes, my name is David Williams, and I'm a research professor in the School of Earth and Space Exploration at Arizona State University on its Tempe campus. And my research area is in volcanology, that is in the study of volcanoes, and in planetary geology, studying the surfaces of the other planets and moons and asteroids of the solar system using data obtained by NASA's robotic space probes. And as of this fall, I am starting my 25th year at ASU since I got my PhD. So I've had a nice long career working on a variety of missions on a variety of objects in our solar system.
Wow, that's quite a career, Dr. Dave. That's fantastic. So tell me, way back when, how did you get into science fiction?
Well, as a kid of the 1970s, I grew up at a time when the original Star Trek TV series was syndicated 5 nights a week. So it was on when I got home from school. The animated series was my first new Star Trek show. It was on Saturday mornings in 73 through 75 when I was growing up. Along with that, there was other sci-fi like the Planet of the Apes movies, which were broadcast on TV, the $6 Million Man, The Bionic Woman, Space 1999, Speed Racer cartoons, the Adam West Burt Ward Batman TV series. As the 70s went on, the original Star Wars movie, the original Battlestar Galactica. By the time I started high school was when Carl Sagan, the astronomer's PBS series Cosmos, came out, and that got me very interested in wanting to study planets and planetary science. I remember the last of the Apollo missions when the astronauts were driving the rovers on the moon in 1972. I remember the atmospheric tests of the Space Shuttle Enterprise. I remember the first actual shuttle missions into space, launching satellites and doing activities in space. So all of that really inspired in me an interest in space science there. By the time I went to high school, I majored in physical sciences. When I went to the university, Indiana University, I majored in astronomy and astrophysics. And during the course of my undergrad degree, I realized I didn't necessarily want to study stars or galaxies or nebula. I wanted to study planets because that's where the Star Trek crew from the original series is. They visited planets. And I found out when I was taking a geology class from one of my professors, he said, Dave, there's this whole field called planetary geology where you can study the surfaces of the other planets, moons, and asteroids using data from NASA's robotic spacecraft. And I said, no, I had no idea anything like that existed. A high school guidance counselor isn't going to know about that. So when I finished my undergrad degree, I then came here to Arizona State University in Tempe, Phoenix, and majored in planetary geology as a master's degree project. And that's when I first started to get the opportunity to work on NASA robotic planetary missions. And so that's sort of how it all began. It was inspired by Star Trek and sci-fi in the 70s and 80s, and it's continued on since then.
Well, that's great to think that Star Trek actually made you kind of, in a sense, made you who you are today, right?
Yeah. I attribute the greatest influence to Star Trek. I related to that show. It was there when I was growing up. Those 79 original episodes, seeing them over and over again as the years of the 70s went by. So that is my favorite Star Trek show is the original series because it's what's had the greatest influence on me. And then, of course, the other shows, the movies were on when I was in high school. The Next Generation started when I was in undergraduate. It and DS9 and Voyager were on when I was in graduate school. Enterprise was on when I was a postdoc. So there's been an incarnation of Star Trek throughout my entire life and my entire career. It's served as additional inspiration to do the work that I do.
That's fantastic. So do you meet a lot of planetary scientists, who are also Star Trek fans?
Yes, actually, I do. Over the course of my career, I've come across a lot of them who have watched Star Trek in one of its incarnations. The older ones, like me, from the original series, watch that. Now we're getting younger folks in who got their teeth cut by watching the Next Generation or
Ah,
DS9 or Voyager.
right.
Voyager has had a great effect on a lot of young women scientists, being inspired by Captain Janeway and
Janeway,
Veronica
right.
Perez and Seven of Nine to become scientists. That it's been very, very great to see that.
That's very awesome. So tell me, how do you, I'm sure that you find ways to bring Star Trek into your life every day. Is that right? And how do you do it?
Well, there's how you live and how you interact with others and trying to follow the beliefs of equality and
All right.
justice that are part of Star Trek in every day. But in terms of my work, when I've taught classes, I've tried to use ideas and stories and plot points from Star Trek in it, and that's culminated to where I'm at right now. Whereas I now teach a class occasionally at ASU for its interplanetary initiative. The class is called Star Trek and Humanity's Future in Space. It's an inquiry type class for their Bachelor of Science in Technology Leadership major. And the idea is I use Star Trek episodes, which the students watch as homework, to identify topics and issues and questions that they want to investigate across a whole variety of topics related to humanity's future in space. These conclude everything from the role of artificial intelligence in society to ethics in medicine, ethics in science, espionage, ethics in war, more difficult topics like slavery or um, uh, you know people who have been violations, torture. All of these are addressed in different ways in Star Trek, and so it's really great fodder to make students think about how to deal with these topics in humanity's future on Earth and in space.
Right. Right. That's really cool. That's pretty amazing. Now you did mention espionage, and I'm sorry, I do have to ask you about this question because I've seen this a lot in YouTube videos where the astronauts, like, well, in real life, they, when they go on these missions, they always say that they have other personnel on board with classified payloads who go out there and launch those into space, and they're not supposed to ask, and they cannot ask any questions about it. So I assume these have to do with DoD, and I know you probably signed a lot of ironclad NDAs, but is there anything you can tell us about that? Because I'm sure everyone's got that question in their mind.
Sure, yeah. When the space shuttle was developed in the 1970s, it needed to be all things to all potential users, and that included both the Department of Defense to be able to launch military payloads, as well as to the commercial sector launching some satellites, and then the civilian space sector for space laboratories and scientific satellites. So, since a great many of the initial astronauts were military officers as test pilots, and they also had to mix with scientists and doctors and civilian astronauts. So there were certainly shuttle missions in the past that had to launch DoD payloads, and they had to be, very, hush hush about that on a need to know basis for things like that. So there's that mix there. That was all part of the shuttle program there. Usually these days, military payloads go up on their own rockets there. So there's more of a separation between military space activities with the Space Force and civilian activities with NASA.
Right, Space Force. Now, did you see that show? I don't know if it's on NBC, but with Steve Carell.
I have not seen the show. I've heard about it. Yeah, and using
Hilarious.
comedy to make fun of the concept there. In reality, it makes sense to have a branch of the military to deal with threats from space because one of the reasons we explore space is for national security regions to have access to the high ground and protect us from adversaries. And we do live in a world where the United States has both allies and adversaries, and you want to be in a position to mitigate any undesirable action by an adversary. So,
or to protect us from ourselves. I'm just
or to
kidding.
protect us from ourselves. Yes, that's
Just kidding. I'm just
unfortunate.
kidding. I had to get that in there. That's what I'm sure the CIA was thinking, right? Oh, we're just protecting you back before Snowden happened. We were just protecting you from yourself. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Dave. Was there something else you want to add to that, or?
No, that was pretty much the answer. So yeah, there was time when the shuttle did have to launch military payloads. Yeah, and some of the astronauts were from the military. I think even to these days, the astronauts on the International Space Station, probably a lot of them came into the astronaut corps from their experience as military pilots.
Right, okay. So tell me, who is your favorite character? So you're like the science officer, pretty well, you're science, right? You're all science, you're about science. So your favorite character on Star Trek would have been, or
yes. Yeah, for myself, since I'm a product of the original series, indeed, my favorite character was Mr. Spock. It was a character I could relate to, not only because of my interest in science, but because of the struggles this Mr. Spock had with his emotions. I actually exist on the autism spectrum myself. I've had challenges dealing with emotions and emotional situations with people. I have also been someone who was bullied in middle school and early years of high school. So all of those are things that Spock had to deal with his character on the original series. So I could really relate to that, but I could also relate to Spock's inherent goodness, his wanting to help those in need, his wanting to use science and technology to solve problems where at all possible. And so, that's sort of why I look at Mr. Spock as my favorite character.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So, excuse me, what would you say is your favorite science fiction movie?
Yeah, when it comes to science fiction movies, once again on the Star Trek theme, I think Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, because it was a personal story. It related to events from the original series of the TV show, and it had dealt with aging and change and helping people. So Star Trek II, Star Trek VI for pretty much the same reason. The end of the hostilities with the Klingons. Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, for its environmental message. Those three in particular, but also for myself, the first movie, because even though that movie is very slow paced and some Star Trek fans complain about it, it was Gene Roddenberry's truest vision of the future, where our favorite Star Trek characters come together to face a threat of an alien entity of divine power, and they use a nonviolence to try and understand it, communicate with it, and eventually recognize that it's a child computer, but also the next step in human evolution. And they help it to reach its full potential. And even though it's a very slow-paced, some say non-action story, it very much is within the Star Trek philosophy. So I also like that movie as well.
All right, that sounds great. So a lot of science fiction shows do deal with the possibility of, especially TNG, I think, deal with the possibility that we're creatures on some alien creatures, very complicated holodeck, and we're not aware because it's so beautifully, programmed. And it's quite possible, I suppose, that aliens do. There are creatures out there that are able to reach that level of complexity. Able to manipulate space and time, do all things, sort of things that would look like magic to us. So do you think, and also I know there's a lot of people in reality who think that it's possible, like for instance, Elon Musk. So do you think it's possible we're living in a simulation?
No, I really don't think so. I do take point that you're right. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So there certainly is the potential for advanced intelligent life to exist that could construct that kind of reality. I just don't think that for the on the order of 7 billion people on this planet, each leading an authentic life and coming up with problems and things and challenges on a daily basis. I don't think that that would be very entertaining for an alien intelligence to go to that level of detail to
Well,
create
you don't know,
an
David.
interesting story
Maybe
like
that's
that.
maybe they have no lives at all in this, and we're everything to them. We're the real TV show for them, right? No, I'm just kidding. But okay. Well, it's like people do think that we are living in simulation. It's very interesting. There's a lot of debate out there, and real, scientists like yourself are investigating it. So I think it's worthy of some discussion here. Um, Now, as far as science fiction merchandise, what is your most favorite item that you would not be, hold close to your heart, maybe have it with you in bed with you at night?
Yeah, for myself, my interest in merchandise
Right.
has changed as I've gotten older. When I was a poor college student, I used to just buy Star Trek paperback novels, and I've read a lot of them over the decades. Now that I'm older and have a little bit more money, I get a lot of the ship models because I'm a ship person,
Right.
starships and things. So I have
Pretty.
models of most of the different versions of the Enterprise, the Voyager, DS9.
Right.
When I was in grad school, I started to get the Franklin Mint pewter models, of the ships there. Now, since Eagle Moss, made available ships of quite a few of the from the different TV series before they went bankrupt. I managed to get quite a few of those. The other thing that I get nowadays is I have costumes of the uniforms, the various Star Trek, Starfleet uniforms from the various eras, and I like to wear them at Halloween parties, costume parties. I wear them when we do Star Trek panels at our Phoenix Comic-Con convention and some of our local nonprofit science fiction fantasy conventions and events like that. So I would say model of the Enterprise, sort of like that one there. That's the Enterprise from Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, the current one of the current shows airing on Paramount Plus streaming right now.
Right.
So those are sort of my favorite merchandise.
Right. That's pretty cool. So I guess no blasters or disruptors, unfortunately, right?
I do have the toy phasers and things, like this one here. This is a model of the phaser from Star Trek Discovery.
Right.
It's very authentic in appearance, and it does have batteries. You can see it lights up the blue
Right.
power there, and the light comes on. I don't know if you can see
Right.
the red there for coming on, and it can change to blue there, blue to
Right.
red.
Right.
So it's nice and authentic. So when you have costumes, you got to have the equipment to go with it. So
Right. Right. Hey, maybe you can wear one of those costumes in the future on another show, right?
well, yeah, I have, as the new Star Trek show has come on the air, I have had a tendency to buy a costume related to it. Most
Good.
recent was Star Trek Prodigy, the new animated show, which is designed to bring young children and teenagers into Star Trek fandom. Of course, it was removed from Paramount Plus, but they're shopping it to a new network at the time of this recording, August of 2023. So I expect it to be back on the air within a few months.
All right, so Dr. Dave, tell us why did you join the UFP? Because I know there's a lot of other clubs out there. So why did you pick the UFP?
When I was a kid growing up in South Bend, Indiana in the 70s, and enjoying Star Trek at home and with my neighbor friends, I wished that there was a Star Trek fan club that I could be part of. That was really a big thing in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And there wasn't one that I was aware of. And when I went to college at Indiana University, there wasn't a Star Trek fan club down there per se. So when I came to ASU for graduate school, when I was working on my master's degree, I went to a Star Trek convention and lo and behold, found out about the United Federation of Phoenix, the local Star Trek fan club here that's been in existence since 1975 and continued to function. So I joined. I didn't have a car, so I couldn't attend meetings, but I did get their monthly newsletter. And, it just appealed to me to do that. So when I left to get a PhD, but then came back, 25 years ago, the first thing I did when I got a car was to join the UFP and start attending meetings in person. And I've been a member of the club, like I said, going on 25 years now. It's just fun to get together with fans of Star Trek and other science fiction and just talk about our common passion and do fun activities together and socialize with these folks.
So tell me more about what you guys actually do, and what are the fun things that you do at the UFP?
What we do is activities, and the UFP meets twice a month, about every 2 weeks on a Saturday. And even during the COVID-19 pandemic, we still met. We just met on Zoom in the safety of our own homes and just had discussions. But the type of activities we do very much depends on who's in the club at the time, because we plan our activities in 6-month blocks. And the types of things that we're doing now, since the UFP was originally founded by a bunch of high school students and ASU undergrads. And so they were younger. A lot of them couldn't drink alcohol, so there was a no alcohol rule in place. Right now, most of the UFP membership are people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So we're skewing older. So yeah, we don't have that rule anymore. So we get together for social functions. We'll have potlucks, wine and cheese tasting. We do pool parties. We do video watch parties. We'll go out to movies and then have dinner afterwards to talk about it. We do picnics when the weather is cooler, pool parties when the weather is warmer. We do road trips to museums and activities, from the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show, the Pima County Air and Space Museum, the Renaissance Festival here in Arizona in the wintertime, the Arizona Science Center. We've done camping trips. It's basically whatever the membership around wants to do. And our members right now are more interested in getting together once every couple weeks and socializing, catching up on their lives, maybe watching a little bit of a Star Trek or talking about it or something like that. And we do have a Halloween party, a Christmas party, a New Year's Eve party, and occasionally other types of get-togethers like that.
Yeah, so it sounds like a lot of fun, but very safe fun though. Yes, you would say?
Yeah. Our activities are designed to be safe.
Nothing risky.
Nothing really risky, in case we do have younger people there. I mean, when the club first formed, it had some older people in it, but also teenagers would come and interact with them. So we have to have an environment appropriate for that. We have a no firearm policy. You can't bring firearms to UFP meetings. So we try and have a safe environment, and we ask everybody to follow the Star Trek ethic, and treat each other, in the spirit of equality, and just treat people the way they should be treated.
Right. So you did mention drinks, which is a very nice thing. Tell me, what's your favorite drink? And I'm sure that you're a very good mixologist. So tell me, what's your favorite drink and the various types of drinks out there in the Star Trek meetings?
Well, when we have a wine and cheese tasting party, we sort of focus on the wines, and there are a Star Trek wines that have been available the last few years, from Sauvignon Blanc and to Cabernet Sauvignon and things like that. So we like to do that, particularly in wintertime when it's cooler out. During the summertime.
So, Dr. Davis, sorry to interrupt you. I just had to ask, how is Chateau Picard? Is that a good wine? Because Captain Picard is kind of cool. So
yeah. Chateau Picard is actually a red Bordeaux, and it comes from France. It comes from not necessarily the Bordeaux region. It comes from a different region of France, but there is actually a Chateau Picard in France. Wow. And the folks at Star Trek Wines made
it's real
with them. It is real.
It is real.
And they made an agreement for them. They have specially labeled bottles, and that wine became available right before season 1 of Picard aired in January of 2020, right before the pandemic. So nice. I personally do like that wine. A lot of the other members like other wines better. There's a red blend and a Cardassian Canard bottle that a lot of people like, and there's a Cabernet Sauvignon and a Klingon blood wine bottle that I think members like better than that. Wow. But we really like that. Now during the summertime, when we are doing a lot of pool parties, we bring out the Star Trek cocktails. There's actually a book that was published a few years ago with Star Trek themed cocktails. I think the favorite of everybody is what is called a Guinan Fizz. So it's a gin drink mixed with, I think, lemon juice. You put some cucumber slices in there and sparkling water. It's a very refreshing drink when you're sitting around in the pool. But we like to make those drinks, during our summer activities. When we have a party at one of our local conventions in a hotel room, we make a punch bowl full of Warp Core Breach, which has 5 different types of rums and raspberry liqueur mixed with fruit punch. It's a nice sweet drink, and you drop in the dry ice to make it all bubbly. It's a very fun, sweet drink.
It's like sensory overload there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of topics. Was there anything you wanted to, anything else you wanted to mention before we move on to the final questions?
Well, just that I've had a great time over the years being a member of the UFP, the United Federation of Phoenix. It's a great,
Right.
safe social activity, and the variety of things we have done is great. And you know, if you're a Star Trek fan, if you're a fan of some of the other sci-fi as well, I just think it's a great, fun thing to do if you want to socialize with people who like the same thing that you do. So, for people who might be interested in becoming a member, our membership fee is $15 a year, payable at the start of the club year on September 8th in honor of the premiere of Star Trek. And if you join later in the year, it's prorated. Um, and you know, we just tell people come to a couple of our activities, try us out, see if you enjoy yourself before you have to join. If you want to get information about our club online, go to unitedfederationoffphoenix.com, and that's our club website. And you'll see pictures of some of our club activities. We've hosted some Star Trek creatives at our local conventions. We've had David Gerald, the author of the Trouble with Tribbles episode of the original series, out one year. We had Dorothy Fontana, story editor on the original series and author of a great many original series episodes, out another year. We had the original Star Trek fans, Bijo and John Trimble, out in 2017 as our guest, as part of a 3-year, 50-year celebration of 50 years of Star Trek. So, you know, we like to do that every once in a while, bring some creative out here to celebrate with us.
Right. Everything sounds really great. So final question for you, Dr. Dave. If you had the Omega 13 device, now everyone knows what that is, obviously, you know. But it's the one device, you know, the one from Galaxy Quest, in which if you had 13 seconds, what would you go back and change in history? Like, for instance, I think that I would go back and change the point in time where Hitler was denied admittance into an art school, and I would I would let him into art school so he could become an artist and not a megalomaniac. So now, Dr. Dave, what would you do with your 13 seconds of time?
I'm very skeptical of the way organized religion has been developed in human civilization. So I would probably use a device to go back to the Hanging Gardens of Babylon at the very beginning of human society, and try and move forward with religion in such a way where it's not being used to exploit people, where the rich and powerful don't lord over everybody else and use it for to acquire excessive wealth, and just try and reshape human civilization from day one into something that is more in line with what Star Trek's values of a successful society should be.
Oh, that's very philanthropic of you. Very nice of you. Okay, well,
And a very big problem, a very
that's
challenging
true.
problem. I don't think I could do
It
it
is.
alone.
All right, folks, there you have it. That's Dr. David Williams from ASU. So next week I have another really amazing guest as well. You'll have to just find out. You have to go to our website and find out and see who that is. Dr. Dave, that website once again is
UnitedFederationOfPhoenix.com.
That's great. Okay, thank you. All right, folks, that's it for right now. Definitely come back and see us. We're really thrilled that you could join us here today, because this is a very important day for us as well. So come back and see us next time. In the meanwhile, be good and don't speed, and adios. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.